Alright everyone, so reverse stages are being added to the game with this week's update, and I wanted to share with you guys a few things that you're going to want to do to prepare for getting into reverse stages. So just so you guys can see the confirmation here, we've got the early notes for this week's maintenance. Of course, the more detailed notes will be out later tonight. Pretty typical, 10 o'clock until 12:30, 2.5 hours, but under the details, we've got Story Chapter 10, Reverse Stages, and the Part 2 Hero Draw. So specifically today, let's talk about reverse stages and some things that you want to do to prepare. So I wanted to share with you guys this image right here, just so you can get a better visualization of what this might look like, but you can see there's a few noteworthy things to really take away from this. So when it comes to reverse stages, they are kind of what the name implies, in the sense that you're going to go in, and instead of fighting as the good guys, you are now going to fight as the bad guys. But reverse stages don't quite work exactly the same way that the regular story does. You can see that you can actually end up going to the different chapters in the reverse stages without necessarily having to do it in order, and there's also a particular star system that the reverse stages use. And in order to end up getting these stars, you have to meet certain requirements. I believe they are, first of all, meeting the actual combat class requirements. So not only are you going to want that to go first, but you're also going to need to meet that in order to get one of these stars. Also making sure that you do not die, or that your units do not die. And the last one is completing it in, I believe, under 8 turns. So that should give you the 3 stars that you need for these stages. And the rewards, you can see that actual reward bar in the upper right, which is going to give you gems and looks like Part 2 SSR tickets, but also you just end up getting gems as well. At the left side of the screen, you can see that clearing the stages is also going to give you gems. Now, looking at the actual units, you can see that you're going to be using units that you don't really end up using a whole lot in other aspects of the game, and some units that you probably aren't going to be using a whole lot afterwards. So while your natural instinct might be to immediately take these units to UR 6-star level 80, I would actually urge you guys, probably the #1 tip that I have to share about this is to not actually do that right away and kind of do it a little bit differently. Instead, because these are probably not going to be units that you use a whole lot, I would just work on them to a point that you feel like is going to be enough in order to actually clear the reverse stage, but then go and try it out. And worst case scenario, you failed. But what happens if you fail? You lose 20 stamina, right? You can always just go back and try it again. 20 stamina is 40 minutes. Not really that big of a deal. What is that, like 1/5 of a stamina pot as well? That's not really too bad to lose by playing it safe and not going too overboard. Whereas if you do go overboard and you immediately, you are 6-star level 80, certain units, you're going to spend a ton of pendants that you might normally regret that you're going to want to use for other stuff later on. So I'm not necessarily saying, one way is right, one way is wrong. If you, want to go with it the way that I don't suggest, that's fine, but I think that given the cost of resources, how long it takes to get them, the whole using 20 stamina versus using a bunch of pendants that you might not want to, this option feels like it makes more sense to me. Now, there are going to be a lot of units that you don't normally use in other aspects of the game, but there are units that you are still going to probably use in other aspects of the game, and you are going to have options. Like, if you can use multiple different colors of a particular unit, you can use the strongest one, like Griamore, for example, right? I know you're going to end up needing to use Griamore, and I already have my red Griamore leveled up UR 6-star level 80 because I do use him occasionally in PvP. So if you have the option to use a Griamore, even though the battle might have actually fought, green Griamore, you can still use the red one if that's the one that you've already invested resources in. Also, if you have the option to use certain versions of the units, you probably want to go with the stronger one if you haven't worked on any of them at all. Now, speaking of strength and power gear, this is going to be ungeared. You do not need to go crazy working on your gear right now just for reverse stages, because it does function pretty similar to the training cave, and that also applies to associations. So you cannot use gear, you will not get benefit from gear, but you can still use associations, and you can still use food. So something to be mindful of if you've already worked on some associations for the Trading Cave. If you have a few good ones that have their maximum 10% stats and ultimate maxed out, you are going to get the benefit from that. And of course, you can also use food as well, but you will have to use these specific units that you are generally not going to use a lot of, and you also will be locked out of a lot of the more popular more considered good units than you normally would be. So, that's all the really important information. It's probably going to be a bit challenging for a lot of people for a little while, but it's not like there's any kind of super rush to get this done in the next week, which is what I wanted to transition to here. Is to end things off, I wanted to leave it on a note about efficiency. This is something that's really important to me. And speaking of, a lot of people feeling like they're in a rush to complete this, they want to be the first. If you do want to be the first, go for it. But I would actually recommend that if you're going for maximizing your efficiency, that you actually don't clear it right away, because we are just entering a half stamina week right now. It just started. Boss battles. We've got 3 days of boss battles, 2 days of free quests, and then 2 days of Fort Sulgris for book farming. And we have these rotations where we have one on week, one off week. We're in the on week right now, where we've got these half stamina events. This is when it's time to farm, especially when it's half stamina for Fort Sulgris and books. But next week will be an off week, and we don't have half stamina events, so I feel like there's more time and more flexibility to do stuff like progression related content, like cleric story mode and reverse stages and all that sort of stuff. So something to at the very least be mindful of before you immediately just go and jump right into it. But anyway, that's really all the important stuff to be mindful of. Make sure that you have some SR, R pendant stocked up, awakening materials, chalices, all that sort of stuff that you might need in order to actually, work on the units that you might not have already to prepare for the reverse stages. But, more videos coming out soon, maybe even tonight, with the more detailed patch notes, kind of depending on what kind of information we get with that. But that's going to be it for today. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, helped out. If it did, consider subscribing. Feel free to leave a quick like as well. It means more than you can imagine. So thank you so much to all of you who decide to do that. And more Grand Cross Global videos should be popping up on the screen right about now. Feel free to check them out. Also should be in the suggested videos to your right or below. But if not, until next time, take care everyone. And this is Salt with the Salty Guild, signing out.